Good morning, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to the Planet FPL Gameweek24 Deadline stream. And it's live over the next 57 minutes or so. We'll try and answer as many of your FPL dilemmas as possible ahead of the 11 a.m. UK time Gameweek24 deadline. Before I get into the questions, let me take you through the graphics on screen, as you may well find the answer to your dilemma on screen. Top right hand corner, you'll see my team. Which I can't see anything that's going to change it unless we get some news over the next hour. Rolling a transfer, I'm lining up this week with De Gea, Trippier, Aki, Bueno, Saka, De Bruyne, Odegaard, Rashford, Captain Haaland, Kane and Wilfred Nonso. On the bench, Ward, Ben White, Botman, Andreas Pereira. Taking very much a gamble in picking Aki and Bueno, I think, over White and Botman particularly. The rest of it probably picks itself. I think Nonso over Pereira is probably the right decision. I realise the gamble I'm taking now, that's not going to be for everyone. I realise the kind of EO of Arsenal defensive assets, but I'm going to take a chance on Bueno. I think could score well if he starts. I only think it's about 50-50 to start, and I do think that Ben White will start. I really, really do, but that's the decision I've made. Top captaincy picks, top 10 in order of preference. You'll see to the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Haaland, the preferred option over Rashford. The real differential one this week, I think, is João Felix. To the left of the screen, you'll see my correct score predictions for all 10 games in Game Week 24. At the bottom of the screen, across the grey ticker with the colours, you'll see next 5 game weeks for all 20 teams. The blue fixtures represent double game weeks. And above that, and below me, you'll see the benching dilemma screen, where there's 2 players placed together. The player with the tick is the preferred option to start out of those 2 players, and they run in order, pages 1 to 4 of outfield players and page 5 on goalkeepers. Let's take you through them. These are who I would start in order of preference. Mitoma over Mitrovic, Mitrovic over Nonso, Nonso over Estupinan, Estupinan over Ivan Perisic, Perisic over me over Dawson, Dawson over Bueno, Bueno over Bailey, Bailey over Saliba, Saliba over Shah, Shah over Tarkovsky, Tarkovsky over Andreas Pereira, Pereira over Johnson, Johnson over Voba, Voba over Castagne, and Castagne over Tim Ream. And the keepers, if you need, Kepa over Sanchez, Sanchez over Pope, Pope over De Gea, and De Gea over Danny Ward. That takes you through the graphics on screen. Big shout and thanks as always to FPL Captain, the man on the graphics, and a shout out to our Southampton correspondent Matt Samuel, whose birthday it is today, and he's looking forward to the drubbing he's likely to get at Chelsea. Good luck today, Matt. Hope it goes well for you, pal. Right, let's get into the questions. Stefan B says, morning James, what's your view on Bamford? Would you sell for either Felix or Watkins? That's a tough one really, with Everton and Southampton in the next 2. I mean, if you're thinking of holding him kind of in terms of the Wolves fixture, perhaps in game week 28, which is slightly more likely to go ahead than not, it's difficult to argue that Felix is very attractive because he's got better 26-28 fixtures, better fixture today. I'd probably move it. That's an interesting one. I've not seen many teams knocking about with Bamford in. Felix in himself is going to be a very good differential for you, because although it may feel on Twitter that a lot of people are buying him this week, the wider game I don't think is in quite such the same way. Yeah, I'd probably move it, and I'd go Felix at this moment over Watkins. I mean, look at Watkins playing Arsenal today. Euros Milechovic says, hi James, good luck this game week. Would you start Martinelli or Andreas? And start Martinelli, mate. I think Martinelli is at serious risk of not starting today, but I would still go with Martinelli. Tom Skinner says, morning James, thanks for more great content. I've heard a rumour on Twitter about big changes to the Chelsea defence. Do you have any more info? So the news going about last night on Chelsea was obviously no Reece James, no Thiago Silva, no Mark Cucurella and no Hakim Ziyech. Those 4 not in the squad is what was being reported. How true that is, and put my hands up and say I know what most other people have seen online, but that's the news that seems to be appearing last night. So I guess you're looking at probably Azpilicueta, Chilwell probably at fullback, probably Badiashile at Koulibaly at centre-back, although Wesley Fofana will probably be pushing for a start by this point as well. James Brennan says, hi James, is it worth going KDB to Salah this week or just roll and do it next week? I'm rolling, mate. I can't see why I would do it now this week unless someone tells me in the next 50 minutes that KDB As in a reliable source, tells me in the next 50 minutes that KDB's not going to start Forest. I can't see why I'd do it. Forest have got defensive issues, just lost their two best centre-backs. I don't actually see why KDB won't start again, personally. There's always a little risk. It's Champions League on Wednesday. If it was Champions League Tuesday, I'd be more concerned. But Salah's got Newcastle away. He's playing against the best defensive team in the league this season. So I can't see a reason to make that move now, to be totally honest. Keza FPL says, would you play Nketiah in the early game or Weghorst as a differential against a leaky Leicester? That's an interesting one. It's worth saying, in terms of leaky Leicester have improved quite a bit over the last couple of weeks with the introduction of Christensen and Sutar into the defensive line. If you actually consider the goals they conceded at Villa, one was a long-range effort that hit the bar and they scored from the rebound. The other was a very fortuitous deflection. And Tottenham's goal last week was from a corner, and Tottenham didn't create any other big chances in the game. And Tottenham never looked like scoring from pretty much the moment Leicester went in front, to be totally honest. So I'd probably have a slight favouritism for Weghorst, because it's at home, to be totally honest. And I think Leicester games do have the potential to be wild, in the sense that there has been 11 goals in their last two games. Admittedly, they've scored 8 of them, which is very impressive. But I'd probably favour Weghorst, just slightly actually. Ayub Seller says, hi James, I have 2 questions. Which pair, I presume it's meant to be 2, which pair do you think score more this game week? KDB Martinelli or Bruno Felix? I think Bruno Felix probably. And can you give your predicted 11 for City? Thanks and keep up the good work. Yeah, look, I can give it, but it's very much up for debate this week. And what I'd highly recommend you all do, because he knows more about it than me in terms of the understanding of Pep and selection, is go and read Luke, FFScout_Luke, Disable on Twitter. Go and read his thread that he put out yesterday. I know he thinks, for example, Lewis may come back in the team, for example. But the predicted lineup I would have is Ederson, Walker, Diaz, probably Akanji, Ake, Rodri, Bernardo, KDB, Mahrez, Grealish, Haaland. I don't actually think he'll change a lot. I know Luke is of the opinion he probably will change more. But I'd certainly recommend Luke's. And if you don't know who to listen to between me and Luke, I'm not joking, listen to Luke. Sweet Blue says, morning James, do you think Rico Lewis could play today and or next week? Or should I try and move him on? If so, who should I target? Again, refer you to that thread from Luke, who thinks there's a good chance that Lewis will come back into the team today. I think they might play with a flatter 4 today. My thinking behind that is that Forest normally line up with 2 players who stay very, very wide in terms of their forwards to try and occupy space against the fullbacks. That could be Johnson and Gibbs-White today. They played it with Gustavo Scarpa last week at Fulham, did things a little bit differently. I actually think they might narrow it up, but they do commonly set out with... They can have games where they don't have anything in the forward line area. They really kind of push in between the fullbacks and the 2 centre-backs. And I think there might be a consciousness of that. That's my opinion. And I think Guardiola is aware of that possibility. So may alter his team lineup based on that. But Luke's reasoning yesterday in terms of why he thought Lewis would play was very good as well. Atul Balaji says, would you do Martinelli to Odegaard for a free transfer this week? I'd have done it last week. There is a consciousness that Odegaard's had a few quiet games. I mean, I'm not overly bothered that he hasn't returned as such for a while. I'd be more bothered that in the last couple of games, I think he's been a bit quieter than his normal self, unfortunately. YouTube's decided to play some tricks with me today, which is not appreciated. If you've lost me momentarily, I can only apologise, guys. Everything is frozen on my end. Let's see how bad it is. Sorry, guys. No, looks like I'm still going for you on YouTube, but I can't see the chat again, which is not very helpful. Pain in the rear. I can see it on YouTube though, so I'm gonna see if I can do it from that way. Right. Who was the question? Oh, would I go Odegaard this week? Yeah, I probably would because of the double still next week, and I think there's a strong possibility that Martinelli won't start. So I probably still would, in all honesty. Right, apologies. I'm going to keep taking my eyes off the screen here for a bit. Scott Dunkley says, "Morning, mate. Think Shaw to baddie a shield. 1 free transfer. Thoughts?" No, I can't see the upside of doing that now. Yes, better fixture, unquestionable, but I can't see why I would want to make that transfer now. Sure, stronger possibility of clean sheet, but we know if it arrives for Luke Shaw, there's more potential for bonus and attacking returns to come with that. This is going to be really annoying for me. Sorry, guys. Darko says, "Hi, James. Any replacements for Botman in similar price range? I have Kepa and Patterson, so no Everton and Chelsea. Thanks and good luck." I'm going to say Max Kilman. Seems like the obvious one. Decent fixture this week. Bournemouth at home and then double next week. So I think that's the one probably. And YouTube is having a right fucking meltdown for me, unfortunately, guys. Right. Harry Scott. I think that's where I was in any case. Okay. How many points behind a mini league rival do you think is realistic to catch at this stage of the season? Currently 95 behind, and both of us have all chips to play except the triple captain. Yeah, you can catch it. I mean, let's just say what we got left. 15 game weeks? So, what is it, 6 points a week? At some point, you'll need to go differential. But look, imagine that you got to game week 35 last year and I know you haven't got the triple captaincy left, but imagine you triple captained Kevin De Bruyne while your opponent triple captained Mo Salah. Right, that's a swing of, what did Salah get? 9 and De Bruyne got 9. That's 81 point swing. There you go, in one move. So, like, can you catch it? Yeah, it's obviously hard work, but yes, you can. Notorious Nerd says, "Start Bueno or White." I've gone with Bueno, mate. What I would say on that is that's not necessarily what I'd advise for everybody else. I as I've said right at the start of the stream, I think Ben White will start. I don't have more than 50-50 confidence in Bueno, but I know from having watched quite a bit of the Wolves game last week that Aït-Nouri was, I don't know what he was doing on Southampton's goal, and Bueno had some good moments in the second half when he came on. So I think he might come back in, whereas previously Aït-Nouri had played really well against Liverpool and stayed in. So I think it might change again. I could have that completely wrong. I got no more than 50% confidence in that. So if you want the starter confirmed, I'd be surprised personally if Ben White didn't come back in for Arsenal today. Notorious Nerd says, "Mitrovic or Andreas?" I mean, for me, that's a straightforward one on Mitrovic. I think he's been flagged, and I think Marco Silva's comments yesterday have been taken out of context a little bit, in the sense what he said Mitrovic had some aggravation in the warm-up prior to the Nottingham Forest game, then proceeded to play 80 minutes. So I don't think he's fine. Ethan Justin says, "Morning, James. Non-FPL, if that's all right. Who is your opinion was the better player, Kane or Rooney?" Oof. I'm going to have bias in there for Harry, aren't I? But I think over longevity, it's probably going to prove to be Harry, because Rooney didn't really have a career in his 30s, but absolutely exploded at 18. And Harry Kane wasn't really on the scene until he was basically, 21, really. So, tough one. I mean, Rooney had more natural ability, I would say. More range, more positional range, a lot more variation than Harry Kane. It's a really, really tough one. Tough one to split. I'm going to back my boy Harry, anyway. Stephen Moore says, "Mitro to Felix or Roll to have 2 FTs in 25 to field in 11. Is unsure if Walker will play in 25. The only thing is, Stephen, this time next week, you'll probably still be unsure if Walker will play in 25. I'm not too sure. Even if he plays at Leipzig, are you going to, which he almost definitely will, how's that going to influence things for you? I don't know. If Walker plays twice this week, do you think, Walker's due to rest? Maybe he's decided he needs Walker back in that team for recovery pace. It's like second guessing Pep, isn't it? I'd be tempted. Fulham aren't going to be much use. And what I mean by that is their fixture at 28 is Liverpool away if it does go ahead. And if it's postponed, it's more likely, in my opinion, that Liverpool will play Chelsea in 29 than Fulham. And therefore, you've potentially got, if under that circumstance, you've got Fulham playing Brighton away, Wolves at home, Brentford away, blank, and then single in the double. The single in the double, by the way, would be Bournemouth away. It's a decent single, and actually have a good run of fixtures, 29 to 32. So it's a little bit dependent on are you looking to hold him longer term? This week, on the face of it, Felix is the better choice. But then I think Mitrovic has the better fixture on paper. Next week, then it's Felix again. Then it's probably Felix again. So probably move to Felix. Tropical says, hi James, I hate owning Edison and want him out this week. Who's the best replacement? Plan to not use chips till wildcard 29. So if you're wildcard 29, you don't need doublers. The right solution for you may well therefore be Jordan Pickford. Just looking at again, Leeds at home, double game week, Forest away, Brentford at home, and then at least you've got a playing keeper for game week 28 away to Chelsea, which, if they did fluke a clean sheet, it's every chance he'd be in double figures. So I think Jordan Pickford, and that might be what I do for a goalkeeper next week as well, because I'm probably looking to move De Gea on. So probably Jordan Pickford. Sheila says, would you do KDB and Martinelli to Saka and Neves/Sarabia -4 this week, or roll the free transfer? Roll the free transfer. You want to take a -4 for a Wolves attacker. I don't think we know which one is going to prove to be best over this little 2-game week period. And there's every chance you're going to want to move it on. If I'm going to go for Wolves, I'd focus more on the defensive, I think. They're definitely improving offensively, but there's nothing to say, oh yeah, he's going to be the one. Also, bear in mind, Neto back on the bench last week. That's potentially going to shift the front line as well. So, yeah, I would not be getting a Wolves attacking player in for a -4. Ethan says, looking to game week 25 and game week 28, is it worth doing Patterson to a Villa defender? And if so, which defender is nailed? You're better off assessing your situation next week. Patterson played for the under-21s yesterday, played an hour, no setback. So he can expect to be back in the squad next week. Whether he comes into the team, how long's a piece of string? Evertonians will probably be able to tell you better next week than I can. But I think a little bit more information would probably be helpful for you there. Emily Sissoni says, hey James, would you do Edison to Kepa or Pickford and Mitrovic to Felix for -4 or roll transfer? I mean, I would not take a hit to change goalkeepers. It's just a principle that there's so much randomness with goalkeepers. Edison's been shit. The week you take a -4 out, they keep a clean sheet, he saves a penalty. So I wouldn't be -4 in with the goalkeeper. Mitrovic to Felix, as discussed, is certainly a reasonable move. Magnus says, morning James, would you consider starting Bueno in front of Martinelli this week? And is there a chance Kulusevski won't start this week? Absolutely love all the effort you and Suj are putting in. Thank you, Magnus. I'd still go with Martinelli, personally. Part of my brazenness of going Bueno over White is I think Villa will score today. So that's part of my brazenness. Martinelli, I'd still think he can impact the game, and there's every chance he will start. I think he won't start, but I'd still go Martinelli, because there's every chance Bueno won't start either, right? I've just decided to gamble it, because in all truth, I don't actually think I'm getting anything from White or Botman today. So I've decided to gamble it on the potential upside with Bueno. As I said earlier, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for others. In terms of Deki, Kulusevski, I would expect him to start, but I also would not be surprised if Richarlison started tomorrow. And if Richarlison did start, it would probably be for Kulusevski. Emily Sissoni says also, which two would you start out of White, Tarkowski and Bueno? Also, who'd start out of Mitrovic or Nonso? I'd still probably bench Tarkowski, would be my take. The only thing to add on that is Leeds do have defensive set-piece issues, but I think Leeds are a big threat going forward. So out of them, I'd probably still bench Tarkowski. 333 Master says, love the Bueno over White Choss, Odegaard over Nonso. Yeah, definitely Odegaard, yeah. Simon B says, morning James, thank you for another fantastic week of content. Anyone on here who's not a patron, have a good look at it, you won't regret it. Thank you, Simon. My question, start which two out of Bueno, Shaw, White? Well, me, it would be Shaw and Bueno, personally, mate. But thank you very much for the kind words, Simon. While we're here, let's see which percentage of you have actually smashed the fun button on YouTube this week. It's around about 11-12% of you. So there's about 88% of you who have decided that this free bit of content that you're watching doesn't deserve a thumb. If you don't think it deserves a thumb, go and watch a different Deadline stream. Ian says, no question for the game, but good luck, James. Just to let everyone know today, it is a real possibility it will be the last home game for Southend United. Bloody hell, has it got that bad? Ian, Send me something on Twitter, tag me to it, mate, so I can have a read of that later today. Ricky Donahue says, which two of these three would you start? Mitoma, Odegaard, or Nunez? I'd actually bench Mitoma, I think, from that. I'd definitely still play Odegaard. I know I take concern. It's just not been quite as lively himself the last couple of games. It was quiet at Everton. I think it was a bit quiet in the 2 games in the double for what we expect. I think he's probably largely been just about the best player in the league this season. It's just not quite been himself. That can come back at an instant because he's a top player. So definitely play Odegaard. Nunes got a really tough fixture, but I'd probably play him over Mitoma. Frederick Hertz says, thanks for the great content. Want to sub out Botman for blank, but also got doubts about Lewis and Dean. Hard to find a defender for both minutes and next game week. Punt for Paul or rolling. Roll is a safe option, or the one I recommended for others, Max Kilman. You should be alright there. James Lovegrove says, morning James, hope you're good. Can't get to Xhaka. Is that Xhaka or Saka? Only one free transfer. Thinking of taking a punt, moving Mahrez to Trossard. Team's in no real trouble, so think it's a decent punt. No, I don't. Sorry, James, and I do love you, mate. No, I don't, because I just think you're walking into another headache with Trossard next week. So you're going to want, whichever Arsenal player you're going to have, presumably you want them to play twice, right? I do think that there's every chance Trossard plays today. I also got Mahrez in my predicted City team, so I wouldn't do that personally. Chris Woods says, so James, how do you choose which players should feature in your bench dilemmas? I did discuss that on the Patreon differential show yesterday, where I try and imagine which players I think of, which players other FPL managers are going through these dilemmas, and then I essentially order them based on how I would pick them, and I try and remove, where possible, things like EO from my mind, like I've done with the Arsenal decision this week, for example. VL says, good morning, James. Start Kulusevski or Odegaard. Already have Saka. Yikes. The fact you've already got Saka is irrelevant. I think Odegaard, mate, personally. Decky was such a miss for us pre-Christmas. He's not quite found his level since he's been back, to be honest. And I think I'd be looking to move him on. Not necessarily this week, but I'd be looking to move him on potentially. I think there are other options showing a bit more at the moment. Alistair Hargreaves says, hi James, Botman out for Kilman. Who should I take out for Mitrovic for -4? Well, if you're insisting, mate, João Felix is the one. Rishi says, hi James, play Almiron or Pereira this week? Almiron, mate. Colin Johnson says, morning James, great content as always, mustard mate. Mitro to Felix, looks like it's a popular move, Colin, I'm okay with that, and thank you very much YouTube for absolutely destroying my morning again. Pain in the arse. Mayank says, have one free transfer, Maddison for Bruno. My rank is 600k. Also, who'd start between Mitrovic or Nonto? I'd still go with Mitrovic there, mate. That's what I'd want to do. So still Mitrovic for me. I've got no chat again, which is not good. See if we can find our place. Probably not. No, see, my YouTube on here is going to be behind. All right, bear with me, guys. This is not good. Sayers says, bench one of Aki, Trippier, White. Well, considering I've got all three of them, mate. Probably a little bit of a clue there if you have a look at my team on the top right hand corner of the screen. I'm not really game for benching Trippier, to be honest. Really not keen on that at all. Right, I might be back in the game, hopefully. See if we can find where we were in the chat. Sorry if I do end up missing any of you out, guys. And I realise on your side it's not frozen, but for me this is a bit of a pain at the moment. And yes, it might be that I'm going to have lost quite a bit of the chat here, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. There's little shit that I can do about that, unfortunately. So apologies if you think, oh my God, he's skipping my question. I haven't got a choice here, unfortunately. Static says, thoughts on Rashford over Haaland for captaincy? Not sure on Haaland's minutes, especially if City are ahead by like 3 at half time. If City are ahead by like 3 at half time, do you not think Haaland's done the damage, mate? No, look, I speak about this a lot. I think there's times to to pick your battles. And for me, I'm not really convinced that this is one of those times to pick your battle. So for me, he's still Haaland this week. I don't think, by the way, I don't have any reason to believe that he won't, but I don't think Rashford is a certain starter either. It's a tight turnaround. We've got Barcelona again on Thursday. We've got the League Cup final next Sunday. And I don't think he's a certain starter either. I'm sure he will start. JP says, how do you think Spurs Kane will perform without Bentancur? Let me just say that it's very problematic, mate. Pape Sarr's performance in Milan was very good. He did well. He's not up to the same level, though. But the kid's going to get a real chance now, and he needs to step up. It's potentially bad for Tottenham. Yes, well, it's not potentially bad. It's definitely bad that Bentancur's got this injury. There's a case to say he's our most important player. JP says, 2 game week punt from Kane to Felix, worth it. So if 2 game week punt, you want to go back? If that's the case, I'm going to say no. Owen White says Tarkowski'd start over Bueno. A no for me. You would see them both on the bench in dilemmas. VL also wants to wish Matt Samuel a happy birthday. Steve says, hey, play Botman, White or Almiron? I'd play Almiron out of that, mate, personally. Geraldine88 says, play White, Akanji or Tarkowski. Is that what I just did? White, Akanji. I'd probably Akanji for me, probably. Dan Cranston says, thoughts on Mudryk for Gabby Martinelli. Reports on Mudryk haven't been great on how he's been playing, actually. So, probably a no. I think he might even get rested today. I'm going to say no. Motta says, James was so out of the FPL loop recently. Got any podcasts to recommend that will help me with planning the next few weeks to get me back in the know with blanks and doubles, etc.? Cheers, pal. Yeah, my Chip Strategy podcast, Chip Strategy Podcast 2. Or I think it was titled That Chip Strategy Podcast 2 from, I want to say about 15 days ago. You ain't going to get it all in your ears before the deadline, which is about half an hour away, guys. But yeah, to be honest with you, yeah, that's the podcast you want, mate. And it's not too much is going to be out of date because on that podcast I predicted Brighton Palace and Southampton Brentford into 27. So it's not much going to be out of date. The only thing is we knew the possibility of Arsenal Everton in 25, but we weren't convinced that it would happen. LP says, hi James, 2 free transfers. Thoughts on Akanji to Rico Henry this week. Next week, Shaw to Emerson and Bruno to Salah. This gives me a full 11 for Gameweek 25. Not obsessed with Salah, but can't see a better mid to go for. Kanji to Rico Henry this week. Next week, Shaw to Emerson and Bruno to Salah. Seems a little bit roundabouts worth. Is my take. You're bringing in another player that's blanking next week. And I think there's every chance that Kanji plays today, so wouldn't you just be better off leaving that, or if it's got to be to fund the money, maybe? I'd consider Kilman again, you know. There's another name to throw in there that will do the same sort of job for you. I think Rico Henry, great option for this week, but it's no use to you next week. Yeah, sure, 26-27 becomes useful again, but Kilman's useful in the immediate. Maybe the move you want is Kilman to Henry in 26. LP says, that's the one I just did. FPL Bean Counter, what a great name. Says bench one of White, Akanji or Trippier. Akanji seems best for clean sheet odds, but he and White are minutes risk and Trippier's better chance for attacking return. What do you think? Yeah, look, I just think Trippier's got too many avenues to attacking returns. And he is, bottom line, he's still playing for what's been the best defence in the league this year. Liverpool lost 3-0 at Wolves the other week in their last away game. You know, what is there overly to be too scared of? Oh my God, they beat Everton, they look good. Yeah, this time last week everyone was saying, oh my God, Everton beat Arsenal, they look good. I would not be benching Kieran Trippier today. I'd be advising anyone to find a different solution. Eric Emmons says, morning, who to bench? Badia, Shield, Trippier, Shaw, Kilman. Yikes. From that, I'd probably say Badia, Shield, which is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing to say. It could be Fofana and Koulibaly at centre-back, right? The others, I think, definitely start. Ben Edens says, morning, mate. Need to make a defender transfer for Botman. Currently, he's one of Akanji, Aki, or Wolves defender. Kilman again. VL says, is that guy reliable? What guy? Andrew Sands says, finish a quandary, James. Nonto over Kulusevski before I sell the fraud next week. Hope you have a great week. Don't call my boy a fraud, mate. I'd still play Decky. Marvin Houston says, morning, James. Please rate Bueno, Tarkovsky and White as your 1, 2, 3. Bueno, White, Tarkovsky. David James Whiteway. I love you, Mr. Planet FPL. I love you too, David. Julian Da Costa says, hey, James, I sell Bruno for Mahrez. No, I'd be rolling a transfer if that's your circumstance. Stewie Bryan says, hi, James, would you sell White or Nketiah for Saka? Also, is sure a sell at this point? Thanks. Sure, it's fine for this week. Next week is probably going to look like a sell for you, I should imagine, but you don't need to sell it this week. Would I sell White or Nketiah for Saka? I'm not sure for the -4 this week. If for next week, yes. If you can work it out for free, depends what you obviously got to get another player in. So who is it? I think of the forward options from in terms of Nketiah price. Like, are you think, oh my god, I want a Wolves or an Everton defender or a player that's blanking next week? So it might be easier to move White on. OP says, hi James, start White or Tarkovsky. That's a repetitive one. I'm going to say White. What no graphics? Hello James. Bueno over Botman was going to be my question, but I've just seen your team. So good luck to both of us. Good luck, mate. Don't necessarily do what I do. Stewie Bryan says, is Liverpool double better defensively or offensively? Thanks again. I think any Liverpool game is better offensively than defensively at the moment. If that answers that for you. I think with the opponents, there is a case to say defensively. Palace haven't been great for the majority of this season. I think it's still offensively. Te Okosong. Sorry if you answered this already. Bench one of Trips, Akanji, Gabriel and Bueno. I'm going to say Gabriel. Julian, I've seen that question twice now. I don't want to see it a third time. Thank you, mate. Darren Phillips says, start Mitoma on Nketiah. I would start on Nketiah. Controversial. Frederick says, I'm leaning towards keeping both Rashford and Bruno over the blank game week, which would force me to play 4-3-3. Reasonable. What's wrong with it, mate? Be some teams forced to play about 5 next week. Alistair Hargu says it's fine. Denise, it's all good this end. Yeah, I know. I had this problem about a month ago on a stream as well where it was fine for you guys, and I'm literally watching me on my phone to make sure it's okay at the same time. So I know it's okay for you guys, but it's blanking out at certain points for me. It's okay at the moment. Pranya says, which 3 of Akanji, Shaw, Trippier, Bueno and Gabriel would you start? From that, I would probably bench Bueno and Gabriel. Josh Hinchcliffe says, hi James, the moves I'm thinking of will lock me out of Salah in 25. What do you think his EO will be? I don't think it'll be super big. I think it'll probably be under 100, to be honest. I think those who've got Fernandes or KDB like me are naturally going to make the move. So it'd be popular from that perspective. Of course it will. But I still think a lot of, perhaps subject to their result today, a lot of people still captain an Arsenal player. So on the face of it right now, and I could change my mind between now and next week, my intention would probably be to captain Saka. And the big reason behind that is, as much as I think, yeah, get him, and I want to get him, Salah, I think nearly every outfield Liverpool player is a risk of playing twice. Nearly every single one. And that's just working on simple logic that they play Newcastle today, they play Real Madrid on Tuesday, they play Palace next weekend, then they've got Wolves, then after that they've got Manchester United. So of those 5 games, if a Salah's going to get rested, which one do you think it's going to be for? Is it going to be Newcastle today? Is it going to be Man United at home? Is it going to be Crystal Palace away? Is Crystal Palace Wolves away, or is it going to be Real Madrid? If he, and it's not to say he'll get rested, right? He might not. He might start all 5 games. But if he does, he's Palace or Wolves. It's not going to come as a shock to me. And I think that applies to all of them. Genuinely all of them. From Nunes to Robertson to Trent to nearly all of them. The only outfield player I think I'd feel confident about to say, yeah, he'll start twice, is if Virgil van Dijk plays today. Then I think Virgil van Dijk will continuously play. Alisson will continuously play. There's no reason that will change. But I think every other outfield player for Liverpool will be a risk during that double because of the fixtures that are either side of that double, which just says, and we know Klopp's not scared to rotate his team and stuff. If they have a bad result at Newcastle today and get beat, might even decide that Real Madrid and United games, just from a fan perspective, is so much more important that he goes for a heavy rotation even for one of those games. Now, it is worth saying the spacing is good. It's 4 days from Palace to Wolves, and it's 4 days from Wolves to Man United. So as I said, there's every chance Salah does start all 5. I'm just saying that if he was going to get rested for one over the next 5, it's in the double. I'd be pretty confident of that. So I think that narrative might grow in terms of people's thinking. So I think a lot of people will still end up captaining probably Saka next week. So therefore, I think he'll be under 100. Certainly. I think Saka will be over it. That would be my take. Good question, though. Henriette Johansson says, good morning, James. Do you think Kepa is better than Raya, considering double game week 27, frustrated with Ederson? Yeah, but then Kepa's got a fixture next week and Raya hasn't. So they've got the same number of fixtures over the next couple of weeks. And obviously in 28 as well, Kepa will play. Currently Raya's unlikely. So like you're not moving Kepa to Raya now, are you? Big Geek says, morning, James. Start 2 of Aki, Trippier, Mitrovic, Shaw, and 1 of Kepa. I'll do one at a time. I'm going to get confused. I'll play Trippier. I'd probably still play Mitrovic over the others. 1 of Kepa. Ederson was going to start Kepa, but Chelsea leaks got me rattled. No, I'd still probably go Kepa. Bailey A says, play Bueno, Aki, or Shaw. I'm going to say I'd find that really difficult to leave Shaw out when the other 2 are both risks. So I'm just going to say Shaw. James Nelson says, hi James, good luck and thanks for your work. Trying to make up mini league points. Is Mitro to Felix worth a -4? I'm going to say no. No, I think for 3, yeah, -4, not convinced. Mitrovic got a better fixture next week on paper. Luke Curtis says, morning James, bench Kulusevski or Shaw. I'd still play Deki. Rahemi 42 says Kilman on me. Well, if you're buying now, it's got to be Kilman because of Brentford's blank next week. If you're starting, slight preference for this week would go to Ben Mee. Perlo's Pen says, hi James, bench 1, Aki, Trippier, Shaw, Gabriel. This is Gabriel, isn't it, mate? This one's come around a few times. Janega 77 says, Gabriel, Bueno, Dunk, in case they're not at the bottom of the screen. Which order would you start them? Can only start 1. You can only start 1. I'd probably go Dunk. Amir Alush says, morning James, need to bench 1 of Mitoma, KDB and Ketcher. I think I'd probably go Mitoma. Patrick Lawson says, morning James, which 3 of Shaw, Trippier, White, Dunk and Azpilicueta would you start this week, and which one first sub? You've got Azpi, You might have lucked out there for this week. I'd play Trippier, definitely. I'd play Shaw. I'd probably still play Dunk. I'd probably go that way. But there's every chance, obviously, if the Reece James news from last night is reported correctly, and I don't have a reason to believe that it's not correct, then there's every chance that Azpilicueta will start today. But you could easily play like Chalobah. Going back to that one, Badia Shield, cool, he's another player, isn't he? Chalobah can play. Chalobah can cover that position as well. So yeah, probably the other 3. Enemy Zone says Akanji or White Akanji. Andrew Sands, do you see Kulusevski starting tomorrow? Yes, probably. Gareth Bennett says, is Martinelli benching confirmed? Not that I'm aware, but for the patrons who's listening, if we've got any news in the next 19 minutes or so, please just drop me a little tag on Slack. It'll be appreciated, guys. But no, I've not got any confirmation of that. Andrew King says, thoughts on Havertz over Felix? No. No. I'd be very wary of stuff going around about Arsenal at the moment, by the way. There's sources you should trust, and if you don't know the source, don't trust it. George Turton says, Aki, Dunk or Gabriel, who to start? I'm going to say Dunk. Ruprin says, Odegaard or Gakpo? Odegaard. Aish Warrior says, hi James, will you do KDB and Nonto to Felix and Gakpo for -4? Or will you roll a transfer? I ain't doing any of them things, mate. You literally legitimately asked me. I cover what I do at the start of the stream. That's not changing. And to be honest, if I heard KDB was out for whatever reason in the next 15 minutes, I'd just buy Salah now and get that done and ready for next week. So no, I'm not doing it. I think Felix is a great move for most. I'm not doing it. The one consciousness I do have for next week is I really don't want to sell Harry Kane, but looking at plans last night, he's blocking me a few things when I'm not going to captain him. and I need to think about that. And I may even think of moving Haaland on as well. I can't see me doing that, but I may give it some thought, because I do think there's a couple of weeks coming up where we can take him on, and next week is one. I don't advise anybody else to do that. Cole MC says, hi James, play Lewis, Trippier, Bueno, Trips all day long, mate. Also bench one of Mitoma, Kane, Arsenal players, Mitoma. Ivan Kovacevic, bench one of Trippier, Kanji or Trent. Kanji. Greenback Soccer, bench Mitoma, Odegaard, Mitoma, Ben Edison, Shaw, Andreas versus sub, Shaw. David James, Whiteway, Borough back, coming for Sheffield United. Good luck, David. That was a big win you had the other night. VL says, my bad, forgot to smash the button, done. Cheers. Let's have a like count now. How many have we got? That's a bit better, isn't it? So we've got probably about 39% of you have hit the like button now, but that still means over half of you have decided you don't want to hit the button. So, yeah. Free content shit, guys, you know what I mean? FPL Iron says, ignore me if you already answered this, as I've only just started watching. What is your current likely chip strategy, James? I don't know. And I have covered this on other shows, Luke, where my thinking is to focus on the immediate, which was obviously Arsenal and City last week, and it's now about rolling this week and focusing on the doublers for next week. After that, I've got the FA Cup information ahead of Gameweek 26. Then I will decide. I can't tell you. No bullshit, mate. I can't tell you because I don't know. So at the moment, I'm conscious of working towards 27-28 as it stands. I suspect what I've got in mind for myself next week in terms of transfers would be that it would probably land that if Leeds then beat Fulham in the Cup, there's every chance that I wouldn't do anything in 27 or 28. Let me say that. But I can't lock anything down right now. Luke Curtis says, great money in football pod yesterday. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. Rich Cole says, White, Tarkovsky or Almond start today, please, James. Come you Spurs. I'd start Mickey, mate. FPL Tidy Butt. What a name. Hit the like button, everyone. Good luck, James. Thank you, mate. Michael Civic says, James, what's your overall? 570k. Amit Alush says, can we get a money in football pod on United ownership bids and potential Qatari dual ownership of United and PSG? Great pods, was loved to hear you and Suj's take on United's future. Cheers. Look, the information last night's pretty fresh at the moment in terms of Qatari bid and stuff. So, I'm always a little bit sceptical when bids come in because the reality is most bids don't go through to take over. These guys appear very serious, but I don't think there's enough in it for me to do a half-hour to 45-minute podcast on it at the moment. We've very much got our eyes on the situation. I'll be honest, it's something more likely we'll do on Patreon because our money in football pods are normally on Patreon. Might be something, if you're lucky, goes in a people's poll. Dan the Fisherman says, Wilson to Darwin Núñez this week or Felix. If I go Felix, I can afford Robertson next week instead of Wolves' defence. That's an interesting one. I think the influence on that would be, would you rather not use a chip in 28, in which case I'd just go Felix. Andrew Sands says, James, you're stuck in a lift with O'Hara, Agbonahor and Mills and a gun with 2 bullets. I'd shoot myself. Simon Workman says, great work, James. Tempted to start Lewis ahead of Gabriel, as I agree Villa scored today, but worried Lewis won't start and will come on last 10-20 and get just a single point. Look, what we'd have to say over the last 2 is Lewis hasn't started and hasn't come on. And I feel that's a possibility today as well. So, if I was in that situation, I'd probably play Gabriel, I think. Frederick Hurt says, it's me again. Already got Kilman. Is double Wolves too risky? Thanks again to my favourite content creator. It's certainly differential. I have seen a couple of teams knocking about with Wolves double defensive, which is quite interesting. I wouldn't be overly keen. The reason I'm not overly keen on it as well is you're going to get the 26 and you're going to see, Tottenham again, and then 27 is Newcastle. And obviously if Fulham win in the Cup, then 28 against Leeds is off. I do think, by the way, there is a possibility that if Fulham go through in the Cup, I do think it's possible that Wolves Leeds might get added to Gameweek 27. Just as a possibility, let me add that. But I think generally you're probably going to land on 26 and think, I really don't want this double Wolves defence. So have a look at how your team would look for 26. And if that's quite scary, use like FPL.team. Shout out Peter Featherstone. Have a look at that, and if it looks terrible, don't go near that. It's something I've factored in. 26 defensively doesn't look great for a lot of the defensive potential assets. James Lovegrove says, yeah, too early to type for me, apparently. Cheers for the advice. Love you as always, pal. FPL Juggernaut says, will Martinelli start? FPL Juggernaut, how long is a piece of string? I think the sensible answer for me to say is probably. But I think Trossard will start. Stu M says, come on people, the likes are up to 40% now. Let's get it to 50. Cheers, Stu. Nalania says, James, do you think Bueno starts? I genuinely 50-50, but I've gambled it. I don't know. I've seen a lot of split opinions from Wolves people this week. Ebede21, sorry mate, says, morning, any doubts on Felix starting today on bench 2 Trippier, Tarkovsky, Akanji? I'd play Trippier. Any doubts? Yeah, I mean, of course, it's possible that he might not start. It's Graham Potter and it's Chelsea, right? So predicting their lineup's a nightmare, but I think you should be all right. Lewis Hughes said, just put the kids to bed. Any major news for the latecomers? Cheers, James. Sorry. Excuse me. No, I don't think so. Only the Chelsea news from last night, which we don't know is 100% accurate, but I'm going to presume it doesn't affect you too much. But to repeat that, the word on Twitter last night was no James, no Thiago Silva, no Cucurella, no Ziyech. Dan the Fisherman says, Wilson to Darwin this week or Felix. If I go Felix, I've already done that. I'm sure I have. Simon Workman says, great work, James. Lewis or Gabriel today. Worried Lewis won't start. I've done something similar for someone else, so I think I'd go Gabriel, mate. Adrian Farouk says, benching headache, currently benching Martinelli over Shaw, Trippier, Mitrovic, Akanji. Thoughts? Thanks for all you do, buddy. Yeah, I'd want to put Martinelli in the team, but I can understand it. If you're sitting there and you think Martinelli don't start, fine. Greenback Sucker says, hi James, bench Mitoma or Odegaard. Currently benching Odegaard. I'd do the opposite. Ebede, no, it's twice over, mate. British at FPL Fiddler says, hi James, thanks for the great pods. My question is, what are the factors which have caused such a massive dip in Son's form this season? All the best for this week. It's a long-winded question to answer. I mean, I have to give a long-winded answer. But in short, Kane not dropping deep enough has caused a dramatically bad effect. It's been great for Kane. It's not been so good for Son, because Kane's not been dropping as deep as much. And when in games that he did, like against Palace, Shotcara, Sonny returned. Callum Phillips says, sure to Badiashile or wait till next week. I mean, it's wait. Sean G says, play Edison or Kepa. Sweet Blue says, do you think we'll get 29 doubles before the Gameweek 26 deadline? No, I don't. I think we'll almost certainly get them before 28. We might get them before 27. Before 26 is, to be honest, impractical for them to arrange it that quick. It's not impossible, but I think it's unlikely. Luke Curtis says, morning James, bench Kulusevski or Shaw. I'd play Decky personally. That's Kulusevski if you're not aware. Dixie says, morning James, captain Felix, Rashford or Kane. I want to go Haaland this week. Go against Haaland this week. Rashford. Jay Singh says, love your channel, mate. Is Trossard starting, would you say? Well, I just said I think the advice I should give on Martinelli is probably, but I also think I should probably say probably for Trossard. I think the inkling is that Trossard will start today. That's my inkling. I don't know shit. FPL Juggernaut has the opposite question right below, so I'm going to skip it. Jovan says, Stones for Trent or Tarkovsky for Gameweek 24 or play Botman. Stones won't be back for next week, so you're going to definitely want to cover that up. So if you can go to Trent, I'd gamble it for a couple of weeks. Joe Page says, yeah, I would go Kulusevski, mate. VL, is the Chelsea Twitter guy reliable? I have no idea, but I know obviously Sam 345 tweeted last night about Reece James, and he's always on the money. So have a look at his account. Galazzo Bias says, should I get Maddison for Bruno or hold? Hold at this moment. Henriette Johansson says, I love your content. Frustrated with Edison. Is Kepa better than Raya considering double game with 27? The answer, if you're buying right now, is yes. If you were buying in 26 and don't need cover for 28, then it's Raya, isn't it? Dion says, is it work bringing in a defender for 25 if not someone you want or need, or rather play one less player? We've discussed this on the pods this week. Like having 11 next week is not something that's essential. If you've got a good 9 next week or so, I think it's fine. Dion Van Nieuwkerk says, is it worth bringing in a defender for 25, considering you want or need, or rather play one less player? Which I'm pretty sure I just read and just decided to read again. Ryan says, White or Estupinan? Thanks, Estupinan. Ash88 Gloss says, Kane to Felix now. Bentancur is out for a long time. Hit the fun button, guys. If you like it. Kenny Sims says, hi James, sell Mitrovic for Darwin, Felix, or hold the transfer. Felix. These are so difficult to answer when you don't know which way people are going with their plans, and I recognise I don't even know. But I could be advising something, you might go, I'm free hitting 28. It's difficult. But I think on the face of it, right now, for this week, Felix. Konstantinos, hey James, bench 2 out of Trent, Trippier, Shaw, Aki, White. I'm going to say Aki, White. Aninda says, start Nonto or Odegaard. Renz says, would you get Tarkovsky or Mikalenko? Tarkovsky of the two. Excuse me. Badman says, I think, by the way, Mikalenko's place could end up being under threat from someone like Ben Godfrey. I think that's a possibility. Badman, ref body cams today. That will make sure that VAR's operating correctly, won't it? Ebede says, morning James, bench 1 between Badiashile or Kanji. Thank you for your concept, mate. Probably a Kanji. True Lotus, Trent or White? I wouldn't bench Trent. And if I was buying right now, I'd probably be buying Trent, personally. And YouTube's decided to play tricks with me again, which is not welcomed, but shit happens. What a pain. What a pain. Right, let's hope I can get back to where I was. I'm not saying I can. Rowan, I think that might be you where I was. Yeah. Player Kanji or Mitrovic. Mitrovic for me. Finley Sinclair, bench Odegaard or Mahrez. Oh, God. Player like Mahrez, I can't be benching that. That's my take. James Brennan, hi James. What would it take for you to stop supporting Spurs going to the ground? I'm a United fan and think if they bring number 11 back, I couldn't go, at least for a while. Also uncomfortable on Qataris. Okay, right, I realise who number 11 is. There's nothing that can stop me. I'd be uncomfortable with it. It would be hollow. I discussed this on a podcast a little while ago that I could never feel the same, but I could also never stop supporting them or going. That's the honest answer. But it would never feel the same. Would never. Something would be taken from me that just wouldn't make it feel quite so right. HMO2D617. I'm planning to buy Darwin for Mitrovic, Gameweek 25. Should I do it now? Probably no. Safal says bench and Ketcher, Mahrez or Mitoma. Ebede, like I can see you repeating the question every 2 minutes or so. It's doing my head in, mate, because I'll just end up permanently muting you, pal. Safal says bench and Ketcher, Mahrez or Mitoma. Bench and Ketcher, Mahrez or Mitoma. Probably Mitoma. FPL DG Boy 88. Am I mad preferring Andreas over Mitrovic? Not mad, mate. As always, I say play it your way, but I wouldn't do that. 4 minutes to deadline, guys. Be getting yourselves locked in at this stage. I don't have any concrete information I can share with you on the Arsenal team. There are rumours floating about, but I'm not sure if they're viable. So, or let me even say reliable. So I'm not going there with that at the moment. N. Kaher says Kane to Felix. I've answered this previously for others. Gailey Bros, Shaw versus White versus Odegaard versus Kane. Bench one. Never bench Harry, mate. From now to bench White. FPL Ezzy, hi James. Who would you bench out? Shaw, Walker, Trippier on Bumo? I wouldn't bench him Bumo this week, I don't think. Wouldn't be keen on that. Probably Walker, mate. He's 6 or nothing, isn't he? Danelius says rest in peace, Christian Atsu. Yeah, terrible news this morning. I think it's unfortunate. It's been news we've probably been expecting for most of this week. Even more galling because obviously we appeared to have information at one point that he was safe, and yeah, that's such sad news. What's obviously happened out in Turkey and Syria. Dave Lister says good morning James. Between Nketiah, Arsenal or Ferguson, Brighton start. I'd still go Nketiah, mate. HMO D617. I'm planning to buy Darwin for Mitrovic, Gameweek 25. Should just do it now. I feel almost, yeah, it's another one. Guys, honestly, I'll either get to your question or I won't. putting your questions in there multiple times, I'm just going to mute people because I'm tired of it. And all you're doing is delaying the potential for other people to have their questions answered. Christoph Toda says, thank you for everything, James. Good luck. You're very welcome. Alex Allegretto is saying, hello. Good luck this game week. Much appreciated, mate. I've lost my stream again. I realise you haven't. Because of these multiple questions, it makes shit a little bit harder to find. Connor Mullen says, starting Lewis over Martinelli. Heard he's dropped. What do you think? No, I wouldn't. There's rumours at the moment, and there's rumours. Nothing concrete as far as I'm aware. Mish says, play 2, bench 2. Nonso, Tarkovsky, White, Bueno. Thanks, James. Bueno and Nonso for me. Tice says, play bench 2. Aki, White, Cucurella, Bueno. Cucurella we think is probably not in the Chelsea squad, so Aki, Bueno. Ali Paxhan says, Trossard starts ahead of Martinelli. If that's what you're hearing, fine. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. That's what I've been predicting, but I don't have any concrete news. Trust me, believe me, if there was concrete news from reliable sources, I would be telling you about it. Rumours will be rumours on game weeks like this. Arsenal's not normally a team where you get information early. Team News and Ticks was very keen to make that clear to people last night, actually, that Arsenal are not one that you normally get team news like more than 75 minutes in advance. Trick04 says, I'm still laughing, I'd shoot myself. Michael says, shall I have Reece James starting just in case news is fake? I mean, it can't do any harm, right? I guess. Because you just if he's not in the squad as being reported, then it doesn't make any difference. Yeah, you could do. Oscar Willis says, is Dawson a good Wolves player to go for? It would appear that way currently, yes. Callum says, also love the content, James. Thanks for the content. Really enjoyed the Man City Money podcast this week. Thank you very much. That's much appreciated, mate. Tendai says, Trossard will start, Martinelli on bench. Yeah, let's be careful here, guys. Jan Remy says, has Stellini stepped in for Conte in more than the Man City and Marseille games? He has a good track record stepping in so far. Let's hope it continues. Stu M says, James' chat is miles behind, about 10 minutes, I think. Yeah, sorry, guys. There's no point putting questions in now at this stage. Jane Esh says, Almiron replacement plays. Too late, deadline. Sorry, guys. Sorry, deadline has hit. It is 11 a.m. I have no YouTube chat. For those who I've not got to in the questions, apologies. Would have certainly been helpful if we didn't have so many repeat questioners in there. If I catch you again next week, I'd just permanently mute you, to be honest. These multiple people over. I'll either get to you or I don't. It's clear as day at the top of the chat. I'll go through these questions in the order that they are submitted. Right, if you came just for the FPL stuff, smash a like on your way out. Hit the subscribe button. And see ya on Monday. You should be back with me for the Gameweek24 review podcast. Deadline stream 5:30 p.m. next Friday. Excuse me. It is a Friday deadline, with Fulham and Wolves playing each other on Friday night. I haven't given a moment's thought to much of the content next week. I can tell you Clash of the Correspondents will be on Thursday, and it will be Liverpool versus Wolves with Dan Lord and Bradley Parker ahead of the double game week for Liverpool and Wolves. If anybody's got any non-FPL questions, smash them in the chat now. And happy to cover them off for you over the next 10-15 minutes or so. And if you want to support the show, www.patreon.com/PlanetFPL. Support the show because you want to support the content and because you enjoy free shit like this. Come and have some extra shit if you want, or just come and support the show and get access to my planner, which had a very big change in terms of double game week projections yesterday. Yeah, you're going to have to pay if you want that. Joking. I think Leeds Forest could go into 29. I'm not that harsh, I'll come and be honest, but you don't have to wait for me to say it on shit like this. You see it straight away whenever there's an update. Right, let's see what we've got in terms of non-FPL. Ben Eddington says, thoughts on Lee Mason quitting. Did he quit? Was he sacked? Mutual consent was the word last night, so I think we have to go by mutual consent. It might be that he might have deemed himself he can no longer do the job. We don't know. Maybe just he's not good at working VAR and stuff. I think it was a terrible referee. I said this to Rob Pick, one of our patrons, last night. It's probably the referee I liked the least. Not because he was particularly biased against us or anything like that, because I don't believe that sort of stuff particularly exists in this country. It was just a fucking shit referee, who I found managed games very awkwardly in comparison to other. You never knew if he was from one game to the next, if he was going to try and let things flow, or if he was going to clamp down on every kind of little physical contact. You never knew what he was going to get, and it always made me nervous. I said on Monday's pod that I thought the decision in the Arsenal-Brentford game was so bad that it arguably was a sackable offence. I also said, when I said that I didn't want to see anyone lose their job. So I feel a bit sorry for him today. But if you want me to be brutally honest, it's no good for me to say afterwards, he was a good ref. Like, no bullshit. He wasn't a good referee. Who's next? Tice says, appreciate it, James, all the best this week. Luke Curtis is probably Booner with fake news on Arsenal. Yeah, that probably wouldn't surprise me, in all honesty, actually. I'm not covering any more FPL stuff, guys. Greenback Soccer says, thank you very much. James Brenner says, is it true that 2% of all patrons are called James? He's very, I don't know if he's actually 2%, but he's very, very close. Very, very close to 2%. I'm not joking, because I had a look last night when you'd messaged me, and I would put something in that identifies you, mate, because you just go on Slack and look how many Jameses there are, mate. Just type in James on Slack and see what you come up with in the search bar at the top. You'll see there's loads. So he's really close. We have a lot of Jameses, yes. Excuse me. Andy P, says, see, I'm just saying James out loud now. Andy P says, cheers for the content, helps to pass time at work, listen to your sexy voice. Cheers, sexy Andy. Frederick Hurt says, good job, James, see you next week. Thank you, mate, have a good one. Toby Evanson says, non-FPL question, are there any bands from your younger years that you miss seeing perform? I mean, I don't have a lot of time for music these days. I barely even watch anything on the TV that's not football anymore. It's like someone said on one of the streams last week, you must watch The Last of Us. And I was like, do you know what? Yeah, I really do want to watch that. And I will get round to it at some point. But it might just be a little binge over the March international break or something for me. Because I don't stop. I don't want to say I don't stop working, but I don't stop thinking about working. When Harry goes to bed, and that should be my downtime, but no, Harry goes to bed, it's like, for me, it's like time to start thinking and start working again. And I can't watch something like The Last of Us when he's awake and stuff, right? So in terms of bands, I mean, like, I couldn't name you a single song from this year by anybody. But yeah, back in the late 90s, early noughties, you know, bands like Metallica, Prodigy, I was blessed to see live a couple of times. About Linkin Park. I answered for one on one of my streams the other day about Evanescence. I really liked that kind of new, kind of American rock from the late 90s, early noughties kind of era. But now, I mean, the idea of going to a gig now as well, like, that shit doesn't appeal to me anymore. Mr. Milburn says, hi James, great content as ever. A question for Sky. 40 transfers left, blind me, and I have Pope and Trippier with James and Saliba at the back. Any advice on a way forward for the next few weeks? 40 transfers left, blind me. I'd sell Pope and I'd sell Trippier. The honest answer should have been last Sunday. You've got additional fixtures coming up for a few, so it might be better off, if you don't want any of the teams that's playing tomorrow, it might be better off just making changes for, say, Arsenal next Saturday, for example, when they go to Leicester, rather than doing it today. And then you still got then like Leicester, Everton, Bournemouth before Newcastle play again, or at least Newcastle will play City, so it's not so appealing to go back. So get rid. Reece James, I think, is probably going to be problematic ongoing. Saliba's a keep, definitely. Jonathan says, hi mate, where are we going to end up with all these state and mega billionaire owned football clubs? The gap will become huge. It feels like a race to the bottom. Time to get my Derry City season ticket. I don't blame you for that, Jonathan. I don't blame you for that. There's a lot in terms of money in football right now, that's obviously very, very dislikable, unfortunately. And unfortunately, the game has now become so much about money. So much, unfortunately. Hamish Holmes says, morning, James. Sky FF, would you take Almiron out for Neves today? No. No, I wouldn't bother, mate. James says, would Joe Jordan have smashed Gattuso if they were allowed to fight it out in 2011? I tell you what I would say. A Joe Jordan at Joe Jordan's younger age would have. Yeah. At his age then, I don't know. Sam Vimes says he was corrupt. I don't know who that's in relation to, but cool. VL says, people are saying Martinelli starts a striker. Woo, how exciting. Patrick Lawson says, thoughts on Wednesday, James. What's happening Wednesday? What's happening Wednesday? Or thoughts on Wednesdays, James? Middle day of the week. Alright, it's normally football on the telly at night. Not too bad. Wife's normally able to drop Harry off and pick him up, which is good for me. Not that I mind doing it. Yeah, I like Wednesdays. Yeah, normally cool. I don't know what the question's meant to mean otherwise. If it's meant to mean what I fit Wednesdays, I think that Wednesdays are fine. Ricky Donahoe says, why do you dislike my boy Michael Owen? He comes... Do you know... I'll tell you an honest story, right? Michael Owen's autobiography is the only autobiography I've ever read and liked someone less. Honestly. He's so up himself. He really is. So that's why. Did I dislike him as a player or anything? Nah. I liked Michael Owen as a player. But he's a bit of an odd character, I think. He does love himself. Ed Wells says, thoughts on United takeover options? The only thing I would say at this stage, I think, is I think the highest bidder, which probably will be a bid from Qatar, I think the highest bidder will probably get the football club. Because the people selling it have shown contempt and not much due diligence and care for Manchester United previously, that they just want rid now, I think. So it will go to the highest bidder. Therefore, that's my only thoughts on it at this moment. And we'll see how she ends up in a little bit. I've lost YouTube again, but it's still running fine for you guys. Emil Christensen says, who would you go for as the next Spurs manager? Who would I go for? Roberto De Zerbi. I've said that a few times. Sorry, Brighton fans. But I'm sure that Pochettino will probably be back in the summer. It's beginning to look increasingly likely. Addy Tour says, hi James, what has been your favourite talking tactics video to do? Good question. To be honest, because I just mentioned his name, Roberto De Zerbi comes straight to mind when I looked at his Shakhtar Donetsk team. And now, because I did that, I could see the implementation of kind of the box between the centre-backs and the two midfielders and little subtleties of what they do really quickly. So maybe arguably that one, to be honest. I enjoy doing stuff on Tottenham when we do it well. Looking at Conte's first couple of games, I did a piece when we played Norwich, which was before we had Nico as well, so I was doing all the editing for that as well, which is a pain in the arse, which I quite enjoyed doing. The patrons who watch the Talking Tactics will be so familiar with the Tottenham Pentagon now. It's almost unavoidable not to see it in passages of play. Steve Greenwell says top 6 and bottom 3 at the end of the season. Top 6, I think City are obviously favourites again now. I think Arsenal can still run them all the way, and I'm not of the opinion, they fucked it. Like there's too long to go. City, Arsenal, United, Newcastle, Liverpool, Tottenham. Top 6. Would not be surprised if Brighton's part of that, and I still wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea's part of that. Bottom 3, I still think Bournemouth, Southampton, Everton. Harry Dawson says, hey James, got 2 frees for next week. Can we just... Harry, thanks for the question, but I just want to skip FPL now, mate. Deadline's gone. John Walker says, if every club has a billionaire owner, then nobody has a billionaire owner. Well, everyone should get a billionaire owner then. Most do have a billionaire owner. Ben, the guy was trying to buy Tottenham this week. This is what I do, right? I forget his name, the American-Iranian businessman. So he wanted to bid supposedly 3.1 billion for Tottenham. Right, I'd never heard of the guy before. The first thing I did was have a look at his net worth, and I decided within 1 second that he didn't have enough money. That's it. Move on. Ben Keane says, "Hi James, what would you do with Thiago Silva in Sky? There are reliable sources saying he's not in the squad today." I'd leave it be, mate. I wouldn't do anything, because you're probably still going to want that for what's to come. Maybe even next Sunday against Tottenham, and also very importantly, perhaps the Everton fixture in matchday 28. Just a dad posting stuff says, "How do you feel about Friday mornings, especially 10:35 to 11:59? What's going on here?" I'm normally recording probably the differential show about then, so yeah, fairly enjoyable. Constantinos says, "Can you elaborate on Son now, James? I'm a Liverpool fan and recall even before last year being so jealous of you guys. Him and KDB were amazing footballers on their peak." I think he's a player, and I have spoken about this a lot over the last couple of years, that really suffers with confidence. And I think he seems to have little bursts, like, the Preston game, we looked back on it. And then even against City, like, his performance was fine against City. Then he wasn't great again, obviously, at Leicester. And he didn't show anything in Milan either. And I think it's a real confidence thing. I think he really suffers with it. But the biggest thing is, the man needs space. The man needs space. He's not going to win physical duels. And he's at his best if he's got space to run into. Someone's feeding the ball with the ball in front of him. If he can face someone up one-on-one and he's already turned and facing them, he's got the ability to do them with sheer pace. But if the ball's not directly in front of him, it's a waste. It's a waste. And Kane playing further forward than he did towards the end of last season, when he was dropping short and giving teams absolute nightmares, has counted against him. Now, part of the change means Harry's had a much better season in terms of goal scoring. But I don't think it's benefited the team in any way, because Harry Kane's our best footballer. So I want him to drop deep. All the time I want him to drop deep and give people decisions to make. And then people like Sonny should fill the space. But it's just not happened often enough. Patrick Lawson says, "Glad to hear you're a fellow Wednesday fan, James. One of the most underrated days." It's just suddenly made me think that this is a Sheffield Wednesday question. Super Tiger. "The Premier League needs to learn lessons from Serie A in the 90s. That was the league that splashed the pounds. Then it was the Liga and the Galactica. It led to a less competitive league." I don't think that's going to be the case here. I'll tell you why. I was having a really good conversation with Cole Bonser, who was our advanced tier mini league leader, winner last year or the year before. He's a Man City fan, and he fed back some stuff from the podcast, both positive and negative, and that's absolutely fine. And I appreciate that. We was having a conversation and comparing City with some of the other big clubs around Europe and stuff. And I genuinely think there is more chance of a Villa or Leeds suddenly winning the league here in the next 10 years than there is of the equivalent in Germany or Italy doing that, or Spain. And so I think it is the competitiveness that is still there. Look at how well Brighton and Brentford are doing, how well Fulham have come into the league and done this year, how well Arsenal have improved this year. So I think it still maintains its competitiveness. Who would have thought, if you sat here this time last year and said Liverpool are going to be, I don't even know how many points Liverpool are off the league, 20 points or something off first? If I'd said that would be the situation, you wouldn't have believed me. So I think the Premier League is more capable of evolution and change of stuff than some of the repetitive shit I see in other leagues around Europe. So I disagree with that. You could say, I mean, take Serie A as an example. In the 90s was the biggest league. I absolutely agree with you. Where AC Milan obviously really dominated in the early 90s. Then towards the end of the noughties, you had even sort of like Lazio winning the league, Roma winning the league. There was a bit of change. And then fast forward to the 2010s and Juventus won it nearly every year. In La Liga, we've had Atletico Madrid have had a little spell. But let's be honest, other than those three teams, who else is ever winning that league ever again? Ben Edison says, what would you think about Thomas Frank as next Spurs manager? If offered, do you think he'd take it? If offered, I think he probably would. He wouldn't be offered it. I think stylistically probably doesn't fit at the moment, and he's done an incredible job at Brentford. But I don't think at the moment he would get offered a top 6 job. Is my honest response to that. If he got it, I wouldn't be like, oh my god, this is terrible. Not at all. I think he's quite likeable in some of his nuances. I think he gets his team working hard every single week. I just don't know how that would equate to a team that would be expected to dominate football matches for 70% of the time. I'm not sure it equates, but yeah, he's done an absolutely super job. Atul says, hi James, how much blame do you place on the clubs that monetized the game so much that it became impossible for anyone to compete without a billionaire owner? There's no other way to compete, in my opinion. Tell a Leicester fan that, mate. Tell an Ajax fan when they got to the Champions League semi-final in 2019. The team that beat them didn't buy a player for 2 years and got to the Champions League final. So the idea that these stories are impossible, no, they're not, in my opinion. In terms of consistency, yeah, sure, tough, absolutely. But how did Tottenham get themselves in this position to be considered part of a big six? Was it by spending money in comparison to some of their rivals? No. They've built from within with the stadium and stuff now as well, right? And other clubs can do that. Villa Park are planning to do one of the ends and building up. The guys at Villa aren't short of money. Look at Villa's spending. A lot of it's not been good, but look at Villa's spending over the last however many years. Look at Everton's spending in comparison to Manchester City over the last 5-6 years. Make you laugh. Right. NG7 Iceman, no Arsenal team news. Not as far as I'm aware at the moment. You'll all have it in 10 minutes. David Justin, the deadline's gone, mate. James Brennan, would Carrick be a good manager pump for Leeds? I think it'd be dangerous. He's doing incredibly well at Middlesbrough, but it is very new. It is very new. VL says, you think Spurs West Ham will be high scoring? No. What result do you predict? It's on the screen, mate. Jonathan says, Ballon d'Or winner Mike Warren. Yes, I agree. He's a knob. Yes, 2001 Ballon d'Or winner Mike Warren. Murugessen says, will you preferably all the games come in Amazon Prime or selected games via Sky? Sorry. I would prefer one streaming channel to have all the Premier League games. I mean, that's what most people would prefer. James says, can we have your opinion on each day of the week starting on Monday, please? Monday, met this girl. Tuesday, took her for a drink. I like Mondays because we do the main Gameweek review pod. There's no day I dislike. It used to be. Mondays obviously fuck it, it's Monday. I think for me the end of the working week is when I finish this stream, right? So sometimes that's Friday night, sometimes it's Saturday morning. But then my mind doesn't really stop working in that sense. So it's just like a constant continuation. So days don't really matter for me. There isn't a day where I think, I've got to do that shit podcast this week. Thursdays can be the quietest day of the week for me sometimes. In terms of, say, like we might have pre-recorded Clash to Correspondence for a Thursday, for example. So that's the case this week. We're going to record it late on Wednesday night. So Thursdays. But then all I do is I start prepping for Friday and team news streams and stuff like that instead. So no, I like Mondays. I think that's a really good place to be in, by the way. If you like Mondays, I think that's a good place to be. Would I rather it was still Sunday? Yes. But I think if you get to a place in your life where you like Mondays, I don't think that's a bad place to be. FPL Spartan says, morning James, Sky question for you. Best captain for Sunday, Kane or Rashford? I only hold Kane at the moment. If you only hold Kane, I'd just go with that. It doesn't make sense to buy Rashford just for tomorrow. I intend to captain Rashford. VL says, Frank is a much better coach than Potter. Time will tell, mate. They're very different coaches. Super Tiger says, disagree with you, James. Liverpool got most transfers spot on. A manager that has shown to overperform in Germany, yet have one title to show for it. Apart from that, it's City by a distance. Like, I can't even literally remember what that's in response to, but thank you. Rosley, no, I don't know if Mitch Fish is playing, but I imagine so. Super Tiger says, how much would you pay for a Spurs streaming channel that shows all your games? As much as I was asked to pay. It's not a limit. Okay, there is a limit, because this season I'm probably going to end up going to over 30 of Tottenham's 38 Premier League games. So, if I have to pay stupid money for the 8 extra games, that wouldn't make sense, would it? But then as I always view it, and I go, well, I pay £30 for the match ticket and I don't have to pay for the cost of travel. If it's £30 a game, cool. For my specific team, don't mind. So let's even say it's 10 games, 300 quid. For me, I'd pay 30 quid a game. So if it was all 38, I couldn't go for the games for whatever reason. Yeah, there's no limit on it. There's no limit on it. Whatever I paid me, a lot less than my season ticket, right? My season ticket for home games is like 1,300 quid. So the streaming for a season ticket for a club is going to be nowhere near that, is it? And I know there's streaming services around countries around the world would only pay like 100 quid or something for like the whole season. It's madness. A lot of us will pay that in a month for all the channels. Williams says, Arsenal win Premier League and Spurs top 4, or City win league and Spurs finish outside top 4. Listen, my life, unlike a lot of other people, my life doesn't revolve around Arsenal. My life revolves around my club, so I want what's best for my team. So I'll take top 4, thank you. Constantino says, which headphones are you using? I don't even know what they're called. I'm not lying. He had some Boss ones, and I need to get a new cord. Motta says, pint of Guinness, pint of lager. I say pint of lager, and Guinness is one of the big reasons why I'm a little bit overweight. Because I drunk a lot of Guinness from sort of 19 to 21. And then suddenly looked down one day and was like, what happened here? It's not solely down to Guinness, but a big reason. So I don't drink much Guinness now. Atul says, I agree, James, it's not impossible, it's extremely unlikely, consistently kills the competition aspect of it. You said Spurs, when was your last trophy? Sorry for the dig, love it. That's okay, it's reasonable enough. But then I know there's a lot of envious eyes in the fact that Tottenham are part of that. People go, oh, Tottenham are part of that. With our league positions over the last 10 to 15 years is why. And I know, yeah, it's fine. There's no trophies, not in that whole period, but since 2008, and it's a fair dig anyway. But no one calls it Big 5, do they? And by the way, we'll be calling it Big 7 soon, I should imagine. Once Newcastle establish themselves in there. Right, I'm going to leave it there. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to close this stream because, yeah, YouTube is so fucked at the moment. So, yeah, I might not even be able to end the stream. So I'm going to try and end the stream, but I'm not sure if I'll legitimately be able to. Yes, I can. Right, that's good. So, love you lots. Thanks as always for the support. Hit the like, hit the sub button on the way out. Me and Suj will be back with the Gameweek review pod for you on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Ciao for now.